We are back with part 3 of this week's reading through the Messianic Jewish Family Bible Tree of Life version, TLV, and we are beginning the book of Joshua. And we're going to begin with chapter 1 in this section. There's a Hebrew word that I want you to be familiar with as we read through because you're going to hear it. It's called chazak, and actually it is spelled Chazak, and it means be strong, or kazak. Okay, kazak, be strong. Chapter 1. Now it came about after the death of Moses, the servant of Adonai, that Adonai spoke to Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' aide, saying, My servant Moses is dead. So now arise, you and all these people, cross over this Jordan to the land that I am giving them, to Bani Israel. Every place on which the sole of your foot treads I am giving to you, as I spoke to Moses, from the wilderness and this Lebanon to the great river, the Euphrates River, all the land of the Hittites to the great sea towards the setting of the sun will be your territory. No one will be able to stand before you all the days of your life, just as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not fail you or forsake you. Chazak, be strong, for you will lead these people to inherit the land I swore to their fathers to give them. Only be very strong and resolute to observe diligently the Torah which Moses my servant commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right or to the left, so you may be successful wherever you go. The book of the Torah should not depart from your mouth. You are to meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do everything written in it. For then you will make your ways prosperous, and then you will be successful. Have I not commanded you? Kazak, be strong. Do not be terrified or dismayed, for Adonai your God is with you wherever you go. Then Joshua commanded the officials of the people, saying, Go through the camp and charge the people, saying, Prepare provisions, for within 3 days you will be crossing over this Jordan to go in to possess the land which Adonai your God is giving you to possess it. Then Joshua spoke to the Reubenites, Gadites, and half-tribe of Manasseh, saying, Remember the word that Moses, the servant of Adonai, commanded you, saying, Adonai your God has given you rest and has assigned you to this land. Your wives, your little ones, and your cattle will remain in the land which Moses gave you beyond the Jordan, but you will cross over before your brothers armed, all the mighty men of valor, and will help them until Adonai gives your brothers rest, as he has given you, and they also possess the land that Adonai your God is giving them. Then you will return to the land of your inheritance and possess what Moses, the servant of Adonai, gave you, beyond the Jordan, toward the sunrise. Then they answered Joshua, saying, All that you have commanded us we will do, and wherever you send us we will go. Just as we obeyed Moses in all things, so we will obey you. Only may Adonai your God be with you as he was with Moses. Whoever rebels against your command and does not obey your words in all that you command him, he will be put to death. Only be strong and courageous. And that's the end of chapter 1. But I want to bring a point out here. What was stated here, and it's very interesting, an interesting statement here that God was saying to Joshua in verse 5, no one will be able to stand before you all the days of your life, just as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. This last line, I will not fail you or forsake you. Little foreshadow of what Yeshua says, I will never leave you nor forsake you. So as we see, the first chapter picks up after Moses' death, when the Lord spoke to Joshua, son of Nun, and Moses' minister, and said to him, Moses is dead. He told them to arise, go over the Jordan, and with all of the people to the land which he gave to them, the Bani Israel. He told Joshua that every place the sole of their feet will tread on, will step on, he has given to them. And he gave the boundaries here, as we read. And he told them to be strong and of good courage, for he was going to be with him and not to worry about that. So Joshua instructed the mighty men, he instructed the people to get provisions together for because within 3 days they were going to cross the Jordan. God also gave Joshua instruction that he was there was they were to take the land, but also that the people in this land they were to overcome and not allow any of them to survive because they would be thorns in their side, which you will see they didn't always let uh, follow what they were supposed to, and later they do become thorns in Israel's side. But God gave all of this land, and much of the land um, is today, present day Jordan, Iraq, and even part of Iran belongs to Israel. And in God's eyes, He gave that to them. So in God's eyes, it still does belong to Israel. And He never wanted the land divided um, either. Now, God promised Joshua that he would be with him to the end of his life, and he would I can't talk, equip him the same way that he did Moses, and that he would definitely be with him all the way. That Joshua needed to trust him, and God told Joshua that no man will overcome him, and just to be strong and of good courage. And God gave Joshua the vision to divide the land, and Joshua is leading here 3 million people, and he does divide the land between these people. Now, Joshua is an old man by this time, and so is Caleb, the other person that was with Joshua as part of the original 12 spies that Moses had sent to spy out the land. And yes, God will use all ages of willing vessels. God wants his people to be strong in him. And God told Joshua to keep the book of the law and to meditate on it, as this is the word of God. God needed someone to take the people across the Jordan River. Again, one whole generation died in the wilderness because they allowed their circumstances to create doubt and unbelief. They had seen miracles, should have continued to believe because of God. It's if He says He's going to do something, He will. Um, he is true and faithful and cannot lie. So this is a lesson for us. We need to be strong and walk by faith and trust God totally. And God relayed to the people what God told him. um, I'm sorry, Joshua relayed to the people what God told him, and to prepare all, and also reminded the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh that they made a promise that they would stay with um, they would stay with the rest of the group, the men would, um, until the other tribes were settled in their land, and then they would go back to the east of the Jordan to the land that was agreed upon would be theirs. And so they agreed that yes, they would do this. Okay, we're going to talk about Rahab's faith in chapter 2. Then Joshua, son of Nun, secretly sent out 2 spies from Shittim, and that's Shittim, saying, "Go, explore the land, especially Jericho." So they went and came to the house of a prostitute whose name was Rahab, and lodged there. The king of Jericho was told, "Some men from Bani Israel have just come here tonight to spy out the land." So the king of Jericho sent word to Rahab, saying, "Bring out the men who came to you, who entered your house, for they have come to spy out all the land." But the woman took the 2 men and hid them, and said, "Yes, the men did come to me, but I didn't know where they were from. So when it was time to shut the gate at dark, the men went out, and I don't know where they went. Pursue them quickly, for you may overtake them." But she had brought them up to the roof and hidden them in the stalks of flax that she had spread out on the roof. So the men pursued them on the road to the fords of the Jordan. As soon as the pursuers had gone out, they shut the gate. Now before they lay down, she came up to them on the roof, and she said to the men, I know that Adonai has given you the land. Dread of you has fallen on us, and all the inhabitants of the land are melting in fear before you. For we have heard how Adonai dried up the water of the Sea of Reeds before you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to the two kings of the Amorites that were beyond the Jordan, to Sihon and Og, whom you utterly destroyed. When we heard about it, our hearts melted, and no spirit remained any more in anyone because of you. For Adonai your God, he is God in heaven above and on earth beneath. So now, please swear to me by Adonai, since I have dealt kindly with you, that you will also deal kindly with my father's house. Give me a true sign that you will spare the lives of my father, my mother, my brothers, my sisters, and all who belong to them, and save our lives from death. The men said to her, our life for yours. If you don't report this business of ours, then it will be when Adonai gives us the land that we will deal kindly and loyally with you. So she lowered them down by a rope through the window, for her house was in the wall. She was living in the wall. Then she said to them, go to the hill country, lest the pursuers meet you, and hide yourself there for 3 days, until the pursuers return. Afterward you may go your way. Then the men said to her, we will be released from this oath that you have made us swear, unless we come into the land. You tie this line of scarlet thread in the window through which you lowered us down, and gather to yourself in the house your father, your mother, your brothers, and all of your father's household. Whoever goes out of the doors of your house into the street, his blood will be on his head, and we will be innocent. But whoever is with you in the house, his blood will be on our head if any hand is laid on him. So they're going to be passed over here through the scarlet thread. But if you divulge this business of ours, then we will be released from your oath you have made us swear. So she said, according to your words, so be it. Then she sent them away. After they had gone, she tied the scarlet cord to the window. Then they departed and came to the hill country. They stayed there for 3 days until the pursuers returned. Now the pursuers had looked for them all along the road, but had not found them. Then the two men returned, came down from the hill country, crossed over, and came to Joshua son of Nun. They reported to him all that had befallen them. Surely Adonai has given all the land into our hands. They said to Joshua, indeed, all the inhabitants of the land have melted in fear before us. And in the book of Jacob, or James, chapter 2, verse 25, it says, and likewise, wasn't Rahab the prostitute also proved righteous by works when she welcomed the messengers and sent them out another way? So Rahab is mentioned in the New Testament as well. So that is the end of chapter 2. Just a quick recap of that. Joshua sent 2 spies to spy in Jericho, and Rahab the harlot took them in, and she protected them. But she also knew, and the whole um, city of Jericho knew about Israel and were fearful of Israel because they knew that Israel had a powerful God that helped them. So they were in fear that Israel was nearby, and they knew what had happened to Sihon and Og, those kings, and how they took the land on the other side of the Jordan. So they were really concerned that here they were. Um, close by in to Jericho. So the king was wanting Rahab to bring them to him, but she hid them and protected them. And in turn, they made a covenant that Rahab and all within her house would be protected, but they were given a scarlet cord. She was given a scarlet cord to put in her window, and that would be their signal that they would bypass Rahab's house as far as when they came through to destroy the city, and that Rahab and all that were in her household, they would be safely taken out of there and not harmed. I just also want to recap before we go further into Joshua. so we really have a good understanding of who Joshua was, and why he's so important. He actually took over after Moses died. He was really, truly Moses's right hand man during the Exodus. I mean, Aaron was right there too, but Joshua was like his military commander, and he really, really was faithful he was there with him in the law giving at Sinai. Um, he was Moses's companion. He was one of the 12 spies that were sent out by Moses to spy the land of Canaan, which they're actually spying out here to go into Jericho. In Exodus 17, I'm going to review this, verses 8 to 16. Moses told Joshua to choose men to serve as an army to fight against Amalek, and Joshua did as Moses told him and fought with Amalek. Joshua was a general, a leader in the army against Amalek, and he was a mighty warrior, and he discomfited or thwarted or utterly defeated Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. The Lord told Moses to write this for a memorial in a book and rehearse it also in the ears of Joshua. So, again, you can review Exodus chapter 17, 8 to 16. And in Exodus 24, 12 to 13, Joshua was called Moses' minister. He was a companion to Moses as Moses went out into the Mount of God. So you can also read that. In Numbers 13, um, verses 1 to 16. In these verses, Joshua is one of the men that is chosen to spy to search the land of Canaan. And he is the one that comes back with a good report, both he and Caleb. In Numbers 14, 6 to 10, Joshua had been a spy, and he and Caleb were the only ones to give a good report, as I mentioned, telling the children of Israel that the land was exceeding good. But the children of Israel believed the other 10 spies who spoke of giants and that they looked like grasshoppers compared to these giants. Joshua and Caleb rented their clothes, meaning they tore their clothes because they were so frustrated by the disbelief and lack of faith in the people. In Numbers 27, 18 to 23, we see in these passages the Lord directed Moses to take Joshua, a man whom is in the Spirit, and lay his hand on him in front of Eleazar the priest, and before all the congregation, and give him charge in their sight. Here Moses was getting Joshua ready to take over for him, and Joshua would be Moses' successor, as we see now that he is. In Deuteronomy chapter 34, verse 9, Moses laid his hands on Joshua, who was full of the spirit of wisdom in the sight of the children of Israel, and they accepted him as to be their leader, as they had accepted Moses. And Joshua was and is at this point the successor. I also want to highlight here, before we go into chapter 3, um, Moses's Joshua's apprenticeship to leadership, how he got into this. Moses called on Joshua out of all of the people to choose men to go to battle with Amalek. Joshua was obedient and Moses trusted him to follow his command, and Joshua was loyal to God. He did not waver, and Joshua discomfited or conquered Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. Joshua knew that Moses was getting direct revelation and order from God, and he trusted in that. Joshua did not complain, as many of the others did, and he stood by Moses, and he did not turn on him. He was a trusted soldier to Moses and proved himself worthy and that he could be trusted. He followed commands and led very well. The reason why I'm reading some of this stuff is um, it's going to set the course for as we proceed in this book of Joshua as he leads, because chapter 3, we're going to see him leading onward. Joshua was present with Moses when God called Moses to come up into the mount to receive the tables of stone, the law of commandments, and Joshua was faithful to wait for Moses while Moses was up on the mount He was up there a long time. He did not go astray like many did, and he did not participate in the making of the idol golden calf. Once again, he remained faithful. Joshua was one of the 12 spies chosen to search out the land of Canaan, the promised land. He was one of the leaders. The Israelites were near the promised land when Moses sent out 12 spies to spy out the land. Joshua and Caleb were the only two out of the 12 who returned with a good report telling Bnei Israel that the land was exceeding good, and they held firm on their belief in the Lord that he would bring them into the very land, a land which flowed with milk and honey. They believed God would help them conquer the land, and that the Lord was with them, and they were not afraid. Both Joshua and Caleb had faith and belief in God that was very strong, and they put their trust in God. The congregation did not share that with Joshua and Caleb. They took the word of the majority, the other 10 spies who also saw the land, but became focused on the giants and viewed themselves as grasshoppers and had already given up because of doubt and lack of faith in God. God would later reward Joshua and Caleb to be able to enter the promised land. We're gonna read about Caleb here too. Caleb's still gonna be with them. However, the older generation that showed their lack of faith and doubt he would not permit to enter the promised land. It wasn't until this entire older generation had passed away that God allowed Joshua and Caleb to enter along with the new generation of Israel. Joshua never wavered and he followed God's instructions. Joshua and Caleb trusted the ability of God and had faith that he would always come through for them. God had Moses pass the reins to Joshua to take over, and he had Moses lay hands upon him, anointing him, and this was done before the priest Eleazar and was also done before all of the congregation so that they would know Moses was passing the reign of command to Joshua. Joshua was full of the spirit of wisdom and he took over for Moses after Moses died. Joshua was given wisdom, and after Moses' death, he was fully prepared to lead the people onward into the promised land where he would continue to lead the people. Joshua followed the commands of God that God gave him to possess the land, and in everything he did, Joshua was a righteous man and he did right in the sight of God. And I am way over here. I got to pause this.